Hi there, my name is Alex. I am one of the naturalists at Okeeheelee Nature Center, and I'm also a certified yoga instructor. So today we're going to be doing hip opening yoga, and this is really great physically. It can help, nice open hips can help with some certain kinds of back pain. It can also improve the circulation in the legs as well. But we also tend to hold a lot of kind of unprocessed sadness or anger or anxiety in the hips and the pelvis. So doing hip opening poses can also help to kind of release some of those emotions as well. So there's a couple benefits to doing these poses. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone that it's really important to be present in your body and pay attention to the physical sensations that are arising. Because the ligaments in the hips are really strong, the poses can be kind of intense. And so if you are feeling, discomfort or you're feeling emotions coming up, that's okay. You found your edge and you can use your breath to kind of breathe through those feelings and those emotions. However, if you're feeling pain or any kind of sharp sensation, definitely come out of the pose as soon as you feel that. That is not what we're looking for, and you can just meet us in the next pose. So if you're ready to get started, we can go ahead. So we can go ahead and start in our easy pose, crossing our legs. We can allow the hands to either rest on the knees or in the lap, and we'll gently close our eyes and just take a few breaths here. Inhale through the nose, and exhale through the nose. Our next inhale, we can slowly open the eyes, and we're going to come into our first pose, Baddha Konasana. So drawing the soles of the feet together, you can draw them as close to the body as possible. If that feels a little tight on either the knees or the hips, you can hop them out a little bit, having more of a diamond shape here. But go ahead and interlace the fingers, drawing them underneath the feet. Inhale, rolling those shoulders back, crown nice and tall towards the sky. And exhale. One more breath. And with your exhale, begin to walk the hands out. We're going to come into our first forward bend, but we want to make sure that the spine is nice and long in this pose. So if this is as deep as you can go, that's perfect. Take your time, find your edge. When you're ready, we'll allow the head to drop. One more deep inhale and exhale. And begin to scuttle the hands over to the right, getting a nice stretch in that side body. And bringing them over to the opposite side. Making sure those sit bones stay nice and grounded. And we'll bring them back to center and slowly walk the hands back towards the body. So from here we're going to come into our cat-cow, so you can draw the knees together and come up onto your tabletop or all fours position. We want the shoulders nice and in line over the wrists. The hips are nice and in line over the knees. You can tuck the toes or put the tops of the feet to the mat, whatever feels better for you. Fingers spread nice and wide. And with our inhale, we're going to drop the belly, tip the pelvis forward, and look up. And exhale, grounding down into those fingers, rounding those shoulders, drawing that navel to the spine, dropping the head. We're coming into our cat pose. One more, inhale, drop the belly, look up. And exhale, rounding the spine, dropping the head, cat pose. We'll inhale back to our tabletop position, tuck those toes. We're going to lift up into our downward facing dog. So again, really pressing through those fingers to get that spine nice and long. The heels are reaching towards the earth, but it's okay if they don't touch. Take a nice little breath here, get that nice back stretch. And from here, we're going to inhale and just lift that right leg up. You can bend that knee. We want to kind of stack the hips on top of one another. Maybe you can see your foot underneath your left armpit. And if you want to stay here, if this feels good, we'll stay in this position. If you want to go a little bit further, we can go ahead and flip our dog, coming into wild things. So check that there's nothing behind you. Begin to rotate that bottom foot, dropping that right foot down and taking a nice little back bend. When you're ready, you can come back and drop that right leg down. We'll just come onto the other side, so left foot comes up, bending that knee. Maybe saying hi to your toes under your armpit. And if you want to flip your dog, reach those hands and we'll come back to our three-legged dog. And finally, bring those feet back to the mat. Come forward, we can drop the knees down, taking a wide leg child's pose, bringing those toes together and allow the hips to drop back. So you can stay in this pose for as long as you want to, and when we come back, we're going to move into our sun salutation. So from child's pose, we're going to ground those hands down, lift the hips up, tuck our toes, and come back into our downward facing dog. Can walk out the heels, if that feels good. Loosen up the hamstrings. And then we're going to make our way to the top of the mat. So taking nice little steps, you can keep the knees bent as you get to the top. And exhale, bowing over the knees. Inhale, slowly come up. And we're going to go through our sun salutations. So inhale, arms up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, flat back. And then exhale, stepping the feet back into high plank. So from here, you can take either chaturanga or knees, chest, chin. Exhale. Inhale, coming up into our upward facing dog or cobra. Tuck in the toes and exhale, downward facing dog. Slowly begin to walk the feet forward again. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, bowing over the knees. And inhale, slowly rolling up. Shoulders roll back, head comes up into our mountain pose. So from here, we're going to go ahead and step that left leg back. Keep the heel up, and we're going to lower that knee to the ground. This is our Crescent Moon, so if this is a little difficult to balance, you can walk that front knee out, give yourself a wider stance. We want the knee to be in line with the ankle. Inhale, our arms up. And exhale, we're going to take an open twist. So twisting that body in line with this front thigh, and then opening our hands. If this feels good, you can go a little further and dip back. Take a little back stretch there. And we'll exhale, bring our hands both on the inside of that right foot. So again, you can walk the foot out a little bit if you need more space. If this feels good, this is our lizard pose. If you want to come a little bit deeper, you can come onto the forearms. If this is really, if you're feeling this is a little difficult, you can turn those toes out. And we'll stay here for 3 breaths. So if you were down on your forearms, gently push yourself back up. You can walk that front foot in just a little bit, bring the hands on either side. We're going to tuck the toes and shift the hips back, coming into our Ardha Hanumanasana, or half split pose. So you want the hips to be in line with the knee here, and you want this front leg to be engaged. So flexing those front toes, and you want the spine to be nice and long. So even if that means that you can't, bow forward over the leg as much, it's better to have the nice long spine. If you have tight hamstrings, this is a tough pose. And we'll come forward, planting that front foot, lifting that back leg, and gently stepping forward into our forward bend. Inhale, slowly roll up. Rolling those shoulders back, coming back into our mountain pose. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to go to the other side. So we're going to step that right leg back, keeping that heel up, and gently allowing the knee to come to the ground. And again, if this is difficult for your balance, you can take that front leg out a little bit, give yourself a nice wide stance. You can keep those toes tucked for support, or you can bring that top of the foot down. Inhale, lift those arms up, and you really want this front knee to be engaged, or this front leg, because otherwise your knee is going to go past your ankle. Inhale, and with your exhale, you're going to turn that body in line with that front leg. Open the arms. It's really important to keep your breathing while you're in the twist. Don't allow that to restrict the breathing. You can dip back if you did on the other side. And exhale, bringing both hands on the inside of that left foot. Again, coming into our lizard pose. So you can come down to the forearms or the elbows. You can turn those left toes out. Whatever feels good for you. You should really feel this in the hips. This is quite an intense pose, so if you feel your mind getting distracted, bring it back to the present moment with your breath. For your next inhale, if you were down on the elbows, bring yourself back up. You can walk that front foot back to center between the hands, and we'll shift back into our Ardha Hanumanasana. So again, you want that hip to be in line with the knee. You want that front leg to be really active. Inhale, nice long spine. And if this is really challenging, you can also come up onto a block or a book. I'll give you a little more height. We want to keep the hips as neutral as possible. And begin to plant that front foot forward. You can tuck those back toes if they were not tucked already. Lifting that back knee. And we'll step that left foot back, coming into our downward facing dog. So from here, you guys can come to child's pose, or if you would like to take another vinyasa, whatever you're feeling for your practice today, and we will meet back in child's pose. So just take a few breaths in child's pose, checking in with the body. With your next inhale, we'll ground those fingers down to the mat, lift the hips up, tucking the toes, and coming into our downward facing dog. Notice how you feel in this pose. Notice if your hips feel more open, if maybe your hamstrings feel a little bit looser. Just notice without judgment. And from here we're going to come into our pigeon pose. So we'll bring our right foot forward. We're going to bring the shin about as parallel as we can to the top of the mat. If that's not achievable, you can draw the foot back closer to the body, whatever feels good in the hips, whatever feels good in the knee, especially that front knee. And we're going to extend that back leg behind us. We're just going to take a quick peek and make sure that the foot's not sickling, so that we want the top of the foot pressed down into the mat. And if this is deep enough for you, you can stay here. You can also use a prop. You can use like a towel or a blanket and prop up this right hip. But if you want to come a little bit deeper, you can begin to come down onto your forearms. If you want to go a little deeper than that, you can bring your forehead all the way to the mat, either make a little pillow with your hands or extend them all the way out. And we'll stay here for 5 breaths. With your next inhale, we'll slowly make our way back up onto our hands. Tuck those back toes, and we'll lift the hips coming back into our downward facing dog. Again, if you want to walk the heels out, alternating between pushing the heel to the floor and bending the opposite knee. And then when you're ready, we'll come into our pigeon pose on the other side. So bringing that left foot forward. Again, the knee comes to the left hand, toes to the right hand. Again, the idea is as parallel as possible to the top of that mat. Check those back feet, make sure they're not sickling from one side to the other. We want them nice and in line. And one side might feel really different than the other side, so take your time. Even if you had an easy time getting into pigeon on the other side, still give your body time to feel the pose out. Coming onto the elbows, or coming all the way down, again for 5 breaths. So with your next inhale, again making our way back up to our hands. And this time we're going to kind of roll onto that left sit bone and just draw that right leg forward. And come into our Dandasana, or forward bend. So our legs are going to be nice and straight in front of us. If you have tight hamstrings or you want to take it a little bit easier on the low back, you can take a nice bend in the knees. And we're going to come forward, dropping the head. And with our next inhale, walking the hands back up, we're going to come into Janu Shirsasana. So drawing that right knee into the right foot into the inside of the left thigh, flexing that foot. Bringing the hand to either the toes, or you can bring them to the mat in front of you. We're going to take a nice side stretch. So bringing that right arm overhead. We don't want to be collapsing the chest. So even if you can't reach your toes, if you feel that stretch in this nice long side body, you're in good shape. You can turn your gaze to the sky. That can help to keep the chest open. Inhale, we're going to bring that top hand right behind the sit bone, and we're going to come into our Stargazer Pose. So rolling onto the inside of that left foot, onto the shin of the right knee, we're going to lift the hips up, and extend that top arm. You can even make it a little bit of a back bend here. And exhale, dropping the hips back down. So we're going to just do this on the other side, so we can extend or draw that left knee in, extend that right leg out, drawing the foot to the inside of the right thigh. And again, either coming to the toes or the mat. And if this is good enough, if you don't want to take that top arm, this feels like a nice good stretch, then you're fine. If you want to go a little deeper, go ahead and take that top arm in. You can use the arm touching the inside of the leg as kind of leverage to make sure that that chest doesn't collapse. Inhale, bringing that left hand back by the sit bones, rolling onto that inside of that foot. The shin coming up into our Stargazer Pose. Kind of similar to our wild thing that we did earlier. Exhale, drop those hips down. And we're going to come to roll onto our backs. You can draw the knees into the heart, give ourselves a little hug, maybe rock side to side. From here, we're going to extend the legs out and come into our Shavasana pose, the final pose for the day, for our class. And you guys are welcome to stay here for as long as you need to, as long as it feels good. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.